Dominic Solanke is going into his second season at Spurs. Signed for an Ange Postecoglou system, he is now under the coaching of Thomas Frank. But how can Thomas Frank take Solanke to the next level? That's what we're going to explore in today's video. So, if we just talk about Solanke as a player overall, what is Solanke's strengths? I think Solanke is a great back to goal player. He's very strong. His touch is excellent. He's really good at receiving it under pressure with his back to goal and linking play or turning and then driving at the opposition defence. I think his touches are really smooth, and he's a very all-rounded player in terms of his abilities. I think he's good creatively. I think he's got the capabilities of being good in front of goal with some extra coaching, I think, which I'll go into. He's also obviously off the ball a really good presser. He's got an amazing engine. He's quick enough. He's not rapid, but he's got a decent burst on him. And like I said, he's very physically built. Obviously, on the back of the first season, I think Solanke split the fan base quite a bit, I would say. I'd say some people were pretty happy with his first campaign. I think some people think he's upgradable. Some people would say he was overpaid for at 65 million. And I'm somewhere sort of in the middle here. I think for a first campaign, it wasn't the worst campaign in the world, and I think he started really brightly. I did then start to notice some issues with his game, and I do see the thinking behind people saying there's better strikers out there. But I think a lot of his issues are coachable, and I truly believe that. And I think Thomas Frank has a real track record of developing forward players. If we look at Ivan Toney, Owen Wissa, Brian Mbuemo, they're all different types of players. They all have different kinds of attributes, and Thomas Frank really knew how to get the best out of all of them in really different ways suited to their strengths. I do think Thomas Frank has the capabilities of taking Solanke up a level, and that's what we're going to explore today. Before we get into that, please do subscribe to the channel. We're looking at trying to upload 2 or 3 times a week at minimum at the moment. Really trying to push this channel with a lot of top level analysis, looking at the youth academy as well, and pretty much anything you guys want me to go into in terms of the deeper details at Spurs on the pitch stuff, pretty much. So please also leave the video a like and a comment as well what you want to see next. But let's get into this. So I have a few issues with Solanke, starting with the fact that I think he is a little bit too busy when our team have the ball, and when we're in our approach play phase, when we're building up. I think Solanke is a little bit too energetic, too dynamic in terms of constantly trying to move around, making runs into the channels, coming deep to get the ball. So I think here's a great example. This is all these screenshots are just taken from one game, just the Reading game, and there's enough to go off there to notice this. So if we see here, we've got Udogie with the ball at the left back area, and Solanke's looking to make this run from what you consider a pretty normal striker position into that left channel. Now, there's nothing wrong with this run. Strikers make it all the time. For me, that's a run you're gonna always see with a striker, and that's fine. That's also fine. But for me, the issue with this is how frequent he's making this run. So he's never really happy just holding his position a little bit, being patient, waiting for things to come to him, which all the best goal scorers do. He's always trying to be active and then making this run. And at times, leave that run to the left winger. I know Mikey Moore's a little bit deeper here, but that run isn't necessarily needed. It can be helpful there. You're going to play him into the channel, and maybe we advance and he can turn and then play, and we're a bit more advanced. But we can also turn and recycle the ball if we want to. So that's the first thing I'd say. I think here's another great example of it, where we're building out and Solanke's come into sort of not even a number 10 position here. You're looking at a sort of central midfield position. Obviously we're deeper, so it could be a number 10 position. But like we are seeing in this new Thomas Frank system, we do look to play a number 10 now. So under Ange, it was more something like this, where there might have been a bit more space for Solanke to operate and more necessity for him to come and do that. But we do have a number 10 now, operating in these areas. We do have also a winger who's not constantly on this touchline, like we had under Ange. We had 2 of those. We have a winger who's happy to come into these 10 areas. I don't think there's much need for Solanke to come and be doing this, to be honest. Or definitely not as much as he does. So I think that's definitely something to note. If we go to the next one, here's my second kind of issue with Solanke, and it's his off the ball pressing. Now, again, great facet of his play. Something that also I really like as a fan, the fact that he's willing to put in the work constantly for the team, especially off the ball. You don't really get forward players doing that too much. But for me, there's some value in conserving your energy for the decisive moments, especially as a striker. And I do think at times Solanke's pressing so hard, making so many runs that when he does get a moment, he looks that little bit sluggish because he's put in so much work. His legs look a bit slower, and I think that is down to a lot of the energy he's putting in. And here, for example, he's in a left wing position here, right? And I'm sure he's probably him and more of swap places or whatever. This Reading player might want to go and play back to the centre back, but that's fine. The centre back's in a not threatening area. He hasn't got options around him to play through. Mikey Moore has enough time to travel over here. Why don't you just stay in your position? And now again, I want to really caveat this that I'm not saying he needs to do this every single time. I think his pressing is a great facet of his game, and I'd like him to continue to press, but just do it in smarter moments. Don't do it 100 miles an hour 24/7. That's the second thing I'd say. And then the third point about Solanke in terms of improving his game. So we've got the on the ball being a bit too busy, the off the ball being a bit too busy, and then now is I think really what sets him back from being a top goal scoring striker, and that's the speed of his trigger. So when I say speed of his trigger, it's when he has the ball at his feet and how quickly can he get his shots off before the opposition react. So the slower that trigger is, the more time you buy for the defender to get a block in, make themselves bigger, get closer, as well as the more time you give the keeper to get set, read the shot, and make a save. And so here's a good example of what we saw in the Reading game. And we see this a lot with Solanke, I do have to say. And I think a lot of his goals come from different kind of moments. Headers, first time finishes. I think he's a good first time finisher because he doesn't have to set the shot up. The power's on the pass already. But when he has to set up his own shots, I think he really struggles. And if we look here, so he's obviously shaping up to shoot. There's a pretty good distance between him and the defender for him to get a shot off, while also saying Udogie's making that run that should probably make this defender hesitate because he doesn't know whether to track Udogie's run, which Solanke could probably slip a cute reverse pass in to him, possibly, or at least it's going to make the defender think, second guess, which those small margins really make a difference in these sort of situations. So he does shape up. But the setup is slow. It requires too many steps in between that touch out his feet. There's numerous steps to then get to the ball, and he shapes up. He telegraphs it so that it's not touch and bang like we look at someone like Jermaine Defoe in his prime. There's countless strikers out there who are great at that. Like you before you've even had a chance to think where they're going, the ball's already gone. They've already had a shot. And Solanke is like he's waiting. He shapes up. Then he shoots, and that gives the defenders great chances to block. And we see a lot of Solanke's shots get blocked. I haven't checked the stats on that, but I'm sure he'll be pretty high in that sense. And obviously we see the shot get blocked here, and nothing comes of it. Now, I did take a look at some of Thomas Frank's Brentford side, especially how he deployed Ivan Toney, because I think Ivan Toney as a sort of build and as a type of player, I think there's not crazy amounts of differences between him and Solanke's skill set. I think where Toney shines more is that hunger for goals, and that might be Thomas Frank's really good coaching. That might be his mentality. I think it probably is partly his mentality. I think Toney's more of a selfish player, which I think can be a good thing for strikers. I think Solanke's much more of a team player. He doesn't necessarily want to be the star of the show. But I've got a few screenshots from Toney's footage at Brentford, and let's just go through them and see the kind of differences. So I think here's a great example. You've got a lot of chaos going around here. The ball's on that right side. You've got probably fullback, winger, midfielder, other winger. They're all around the ball. But look where Toney is. Toney's all he wants to do is be between those two posts because that's where the goals are scored. I'd say 80+%. I don't know the full numbers, but I'd say it's super high how many goals are scored in between those two posts. And Toney knows that. And he's peeling off the defender, and this ball gets cut back, and he flicks it in. Here again, Toney is just at the back of the picture, peeling off over there. Ben Mee's about to flick it. Again, Toney's not really worrying about going and getting that first ball. He doesn't want to be involved in the chaos constantly. He's looking to peel it off the defender, and Ben Mee flicks it on, and Toney does get ahead and heads it into the back of the net. Again here, outside your picture, it looks like he's offside here, but there's actually a defender keeping him onside, which is out of shot. Again, and Mbeumo's the one cutting into these 10 areas. Toney wants to be on the last line. He wants to be scoring goals. He wants to be hungry to score goals. Again, you'd probably more likely see Solanke in this area trying to supply someone else. Obviously, that's Toney then tucking it in. So if we talk about this in the sort of Thomas Frank setup, I think there's a lot that we can do here. I think in terms of coaching, I think first of all, I think it's in Solanke's DNA to want to play in these areas. I think Frank needs to tell him basically, you need to be in between these posts much more often, especially as we now have a number 10 operating in these areas. You are the primary goal scorer. We need you in between those posts because when things do come round here, we need someone to make in those runs and putting the ball in the back of the net. Again, like I said, there's a winger who's going to be more narrow. We've got players operating in these central zones. You don't need to be there, or at least you don't need to be there every single time. Like I have touched on, I do think we'll see at times the 10 dropping in here, which is where you might see Solanke coming a bit deeper. That's fine. That's fine at times for him to come deeper. Once you play it into his feet, he can lay it off. Then he needs to make a sprint towards the box. You don't want him doing this, playing out to the winger, and then jogging, maybe coming over here to play a 1-2 or just not having that hunger to really then attack the box with purpose. And I think that's part of the issue. I think part of the issue is he wants to be involved with everything. I think the other issue is he hasn't got that necessary hunger to want to score goals because it's not necessarily in his natural personality. That doesn't mean that he can't do it though, especially if he's coached to do it. And I think Thomas Frank will be big on him getting between the posts, especially because he's good aerially. And we haven't seen that enough because he doesn't get in those areas enough. He doesn't get on the end of crosses enough because he's not often in those areas to receive crosses. So I think that's a major part. So I think those things are definitely coachable. The other thing is obviously preserving your energy a bit more when you're going out and pressing. I think Thomas Frank will be looking to play mid-block more often than we did under Ange, in which case there's less pressing to do from the front. We'll probably set up something like this out of possession. And you can kind of, until they sort of enter this area, you can kind of sit off and then you probably then start pressing aggressively. But it's nowhere near as much work as what he was doing under Ange, where he was running from left to right, chasing every ball, chasing down the keeper. So those are massive differences. So that's the first two things. I think the shot setouts and the trigger speed, I think, is something that might take a bit more time and may actually never come. And I think part of it is his size with Solanke. I think he's a big built guy, and it's always more difficult to be so sharp when you don't have that low center of gravity. When you don't necessarily have that burst to get nice and close to the ball and hit it with no backlift. I think Solanke's ball striking isn't the best in general, to be honest. It's not the cleanest, but there's definitely levels he can go up to. And it's not about maybe hitting those elite levels, because I think he can be elite in other aspects, but it's definitely about improving that, and that will definitely improve the likelihood of him scoring a higher amount of goals this season. So I think those are the three things that we look for in terms of Solanke developing, going to the next level. I think Thomas Frank is certainly a great manager to do that for Solanke. And I can imagine that as the season goes on and Frank gets more and more time with Solanke, I can imagine his goal scoring improving, which is what a lot of people had an issue with last season. And hopefully we can also keep some of the other things that we've liked about him, which are his link play, which there are 100% times where his link play will be important, and that will probably come hopefully come, in my opinion, is when we're much higher, and it's in and around the box and it's cramped, and you can sort of play into Solanke, you can hold off a defender and maybe flick it round for a 10 to go and take a shot, or you might have a number 10 running beyond at times and Solanke coming here and then playing out to the winger and then joining the box. So there's lots of different ways, but we don't want him dropping into these deep areas, especially when we're in the approach play. I think we want him much higher, much more dangerous, and then much more likely to score goals. But that's the end of this video. I've enjoyed making this one. I especially really like going into sort of deep dives on players like this and how we can maybe get them to the next level. So if you'd like to see more of that, please let me know in the comments. There's so much to dive into with the current Spurs squad. I think a lot of them have been playing beneath their potential and their actual level. So please do comment who you'd like to see next. And please do subscribe to the channel. Like I've said, it's really helpful. We're trying to make as many videos as possible for you guys who are watching, so that would be massive for me. But that's it. Thank you for watching, and come on, you Spurs.